Hi, it's Craig from Craig's To-Do List. We're here with another Book Buzz interview, and this Book Buzz interview is with author Pamela McColl, who wrote a book just in time for Christmas. Here's Pamela's book. We're going to give you a better shot of it, but this is an amazing, lushly illustrated pictorial review called Wondrous Mrs. Claus. And Pamela's here joining us from afar. Pamela, welcome.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about the inspiration for this book. It's really gorgeous. And where did the inspiration for this book come from?
Well, when I was writing the history of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, which is 202 years old, I kept finding stories of Mrs. Claus in old periodicals, newspapers like Harper's or magazines. And so I created a file, and then I thought, what a wonderful thing to go and research, because I don't think anyone's ever done a pictorial and literary review of this amazing character. So it was great fun to work on, as you can imagine. Beautiful images and wonderful stories that have been pretty well lost in time.
Well, the images are amazing. I mean, it's a gorgeous book. I can't imagine. I mean, and to think that there was so much out there about this character that we didn't know about. I mean, were you finding that there was disinformation or different kinds of information? Were there different myths and different legends, or did they all sort of coalesce into something that, seems like the right story?
Well, no, what was fascinating was that I found stories starting in 1849 in Philadelphia and 1851 in New Haven, Connecticut, and then all the way through the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s that were very different. Every single author seemed to have never read what anyone else had written. And the illustrations were also different. You have Mrs. Claus, dress up in a disguise, but you also have her as her own character. You have her an adventurous heroine going off on her own sleigh with her reindeer named Snowflake, saving the day, and all kinds of stories. It was fascinating, the different way that people portrayed her.
Yeah, so I imagine that was part of the fun is uncovering these images, and like you said, in some of the images, she looks like a real character. In other images, she kind of looks just like a housewife. So, and some of them she looks glamorous and attractive, and some of them she looks kind of frumpy and like dull. And so, it's just I think it's fascinating that this is somebody that's been mentioned in folklore for so long, and we didn't really have a handle on her until now. So. Yeah, so what is something about, what is one of your favorite stories of Mrs. Claus, without giving away the whole book, that you would like to relate to us?
Well, I think the most interesting are the stories written between 1870 and 1888, which involve her in the suffrage movement, women getting the vote. And you have people writing her as an adventurous, out she goes and she's brave and successful and everything else. And you have people who are opposed to women getting the vote, kind of making fun of her even daring to leave the domestic arena. And they write her into stories where she, crashes her sleigh and ruins her clothes and make fun of her. So those were by far the most interesting. And the most important of those is Goody, written by Catherine Lee Bates, which is a story, a poem about Mrs. Claus wanting to be part of the action and join Santa on the sleigh. So it's quite a famous Mrs. Claus poem, but the rest of them are very obscure, and they're not on the internet. I found them in old periodicals.
Well, that's interesting. So almost like her character was politicized at some point. That's interesting. Yes.
Still is.
Yeah.
Still is.
Cool. And so have you always been a person that's sort of been into Christmas, or did this come to you? Or what came first, the history and history passion, or Christmas passion, or they kind of just lined up?
Well, I have an undergraduate degree in history and I have a master's degree in art history. But what happened to me was in 2012, I took the smoking pipe out of Santa's mouth in 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. And I did it as a tobacco activist, I prevention activist. And my book was well received. It received international media from people like Barbara Walters on The View and Stephen Colbert and Brian Williams on NBC Nightly News. It went around the world to China and India as a story that I'm the one who got Santa Claus to quit smoking, which sounds a bit strange, but it was a big deal then because no one had ever done that before. And that sort of started this whole thing.
That's really interesting. So, um, So I suppose if it's a legend or a myth, the facts can be malleable at some point and they change over time, correct? I mean, doesn't the story even of Santa Claus change over time? Like what Santa Claus was 400 years ago, or ever when Santa Claus was invented, and what he is now, that changed over time
Very
too.
much.
Yeah.
Very much. The "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" is the most famous poem ever written in the English language, but there's 2,000 editions of it. And so for me to come along and make a smoke-free edition, I didn't think was that groundbreaking, but the American Library Association decided to call me a literary vandal and make sort of a big news story out of it. So that's why it ended up in all these major media outlets. But as you said, there's so many versions of it, and it's free game because it was printed anonymously in 1823. So you can do whatever you want with it.
So what do you think is the underlying most interesting character trait of Mrs. Claus? Is a supportive wife? Is she her own woman? Is she a career woman? Has there ever been children mentioned? Because that's interesting to me.
There are children mentioned and grandchildren, but the thing about Mrs. Claus is that she represents, like Santa does, the very best of all of us. And so she represents, I would go as far as to say empowerment, generosity of spirit, love and kindness, and all of these things. So to me, she's not a character who's begrudging that she doesn't get her fair due, or thanks or gratitude. She's way beyond that. She's like Santa Claus, very much into anonymous giving and generosity of spirit. She represents, as I said, the very finest qualities. And so I think she's a real role model, and I think she's wonderful. It was great getting to know her, researching her.
Yeah, no, this is such an interesting concept and such a background character that's always just been there for so long. It's kind of like, one of those obscure rock groups from the 80s where there's like, one band member that never gets any attention, then all of a sudden like, oh, what happened to them or what's their life like? So so you have another book that came out a couple years ago, "'Twas the Night." Let's just talk briefly about that because
Sure.
uh, so this poem has a local tie-in to this area, I believe, or in upstate New York, correct?
Yes, well, both of these characters do in a very big way because "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" was published in the Troy Sentinel in 1823 for Christmas, December 23rd. So it's very much a story there, and I've spent a lot of time working in the area because of that. But Mrs. Claus also makes her world premiere on the theatrical stage in Utica, New York.
Oh,
So
really?
she's kind of yours as well.
Yeah.
The first time we ever see Mrs. Claus appear in a theatrical performance, a dramatic performance, is in New York in 1854 in Utica, New York, on the stage of the New York State Lunatic Asylum, which is what it was called then. Now it's referred to as the Old Main, but at the time that's what the name of the institution was, and it was a play performed by and written by the patients who were staying there. So it's pretty outstanding, that whole story of how that came to be. But she appears with Santa with a baby named Orville in that theater production. So
Wow, that's incredibly interesting. Yeah, and I just love the research involved in this. It has a real feel of authenticity, and the images selected. This is a really gorgeous book, and I was thinking about giving it to somebody for Christmas, but now I'm thinking about keeping it for myself. So I don't know how
thank
about
you.
that. I don't know about that, but now the gig is up because this is public. But anyway, this is fantastic. And where can we get the book? If people want
It's
it, I
a
mean, this is definitely something you want in hardcover. This is not something you want virtually. I'm assuming. But where's a good place to shop for this?
Well, everywhere, Barnes& and Noble,
Right.
Amazon, local bookstores, but I think we've almost sold out though. It came out on September the 23rd, and I believe we're almost out of stock. So Amazon's probably your best bet at this point if they still have any inventory. But it's been a thrill to travel the country. Uh, Speaking about her, I've spoken at 200 museums in the last 4 years on the history of Twas the Night Before Christmas, but also on the history of Mrs. Claus. And it's just been wonderful to go to museums and speak and just share this 200-year history. I was very involved in the bicentennial celebrations, which was it happened in 2023, and it still is loved the world over wherever I go. No one ever has to explain what Wasn't It for Christmas is about, everybody knows.
Cool. Well, that's great to know, and like I said, I'm not surprised it's selling out so close to the Christmas. It's just it's definitely unique, and we appreciate the effort that and your passion that you put into this. Like I said, you can't get a better combination of history and Christmas than this. And so, if you do have any left, it will serve as a great gift for both people that love Christmas and people that love history. Pamela, thank you so much for speaking with us today. I love the book and the tradition of
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Claus. Have a good holiday. Have a good holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much.
You can see more entertainment and arts news, more arts and entertainment news on Craig's to-do list on our website. Thank you.